It's the beginning of the 24-25 season, which means it's time to make more predictions. Today we're going to go through the divisions, and I'm going to predict the NHL standings for the 24-25 campaign, and that's coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, every year at the beginning of the NHL season, we always make a bunch of videos here to make a bunch of predictions, largely just for fun. Very difficult to be accurate with a lot of this stuff, but we certainly like to go through the exercise, have the fun doing it, see what we think. Sometimes we end up right, sometimes it's off a little bit, sometimes it's off a whole lot. At the end of the day, like I said, this is really just, for entertainment purposes, give my thoughts, and I'd like to know what you guys think as well. Obviously, as the season moves along, we may kind of have some second thoughts on some of these predictions, and some of them might turn out to be perfect. So we're going to go through each division. Going to give my thoughts on how the teams are going to finish, which teams are going to get into the playoffs. I'm not going to do a playoff prediction video and predict like the Stanley Cup winner and all that here today. This is strictly just on standings. There will be another prediction video coming soon where I take these predictions and take it a step further, where we go through and kind of break down the playoff series and who I think is going to end up eventually come out of the East and the West, meet in the Stanley Cup final, and ultimately win the 25 Stanley Cup. So let's start in the Eastern Conference, the Atlantic Division, which I do think is going to produce a lot of great hockey this year. I also think it's going to be very difficult, if not the most difficult, to predict. I do think there's a lot of good teams here. A lot of teams have showing improvements. So let's go through. I'm going to start at the bottom, and we're going to work our way up to the top. Ultimately, in the Atlantic, I have in 8th and last place the Buffalo Sabres. I know as I record this video, obviously most teams have played at least a game. Some have played 2. In the case of Buffalo, they've played 3. And they are 0-3, and they've only scored 3 goals. And there's lots of reasons I think the Sabres have to be concerned. Coming into this, before they ever played a game, obviously between Buffalo, Detroit, Montreal, Ottawa, like those bottom 4 teams that are all looking to move up, I honestly thought that Buffalo probably improved the least, and I had more concerns for them than the other 3, and they're kind of showing that to be accurate so far. Now, it's only 3 games. Lindy Ruff has some work to do. They have to learn to score. Obviously, there's lots of things that are kind of a work in progress, new coach, new systems, and all that. So, they can work out the kinks, and they could turn out to be much better as the season goes along. But right now, unfortunately, I don't see Buffalo really getting ahead. I think it's going to be a step back after a couple of years of getting close. In 7th place, I've got the Montreal Canadiens. I've got the Habs, obviously, who were last year. Have them moving up only 1 spot. I do think there's lots of reasons to be optimistic about Montreal this year. Could they maybe surprise and be a little bit higher? Yeah, that's possible. But to be honest, I think they have so much youth that you're bound to get your nights where things look really good and you see a glimpse of the future where things are getting really strong. But I also think there's going to be a lot of nights where they still show their inexperience and ultimately have a lot of tough lessons to learn. So they've got a really young D with a couple of veterans in there. Ultimately, they've got a fairly young goaltending tandem. Obviously Montembeault had a really good opening night. But, how much can he do that? Can he do that, 50, 60 times? I'm not so sure. You've got a lot of scoring up front, but, so far they haven't scored a ton of goals, but they have been able to put the puck in net a little bit. I think Montreal has reasons to be optimistic. I just don't see them going up a ton here. Number 6, I've got Detroit. Detroit, another team I can see some small improvements, but there's also some concerns. In my opinion, Detroit, like Buffalo, they had an okay offseason, but the one area that really concerns me is goaltending. You've got Ville Husso, who's how much can you count on him? Alex Lyon has been reasonably steady the last couple of years, but then he brought in Cam Talbot on a multi-year deal. Talbot has really been not consistent the past few years. I was really surprised. They also signed Jack Campbell, who's now in a player assistance program. I don't think they signed him with the intention of him being on the NHL roster, just kind of being an extra depth goalie if he can get things going, kind of like a take a bet on him. And if he gets playing well in the AHL and they run into issues and you can bring him up, then you have him there. But at the end of the day, Detroit, they brought back Patrick Kane. I don't think they're going to have trouble scoring goals. My big concern with Detroit is, can the goaltending be healthy and consistent? That's why I'm not sure. And that blue line, that Detroit blue line to me is not great. Now, they did make some good moves throughout the course of training camp, like waiving Justin Hall. So obviously they did, give some other players that are going to get more of a chance, like Simon Edvinsson, Johansson. Like those guys are going to have a chance to play a little bit more ahead of him, which is good. But I still don't know that they're really any better than enough to go up to that level. At number 5, I have the Ottawa Senators. The Senators won opening night against the defending Cup champion Florida Panthers last night. They did look really good. Linus Ullmark, for me, is the big X factor here. Linus Ullmark did last night what I expect him to do. Most nights when he's in the net, he's a big, elite-level goaltender who's calm and cool back there and just gives this team every little bit of confidence. He stopped 30 of 31 shots, was, like I said, some 10 bellers when he was called upon. There were times when the Sens blue line, kind of buckled a little bit, but they didn't completely break, and he bailed them out. They never got that last year at all. And out of all these bottom teams, I have to say that goaltending by far should be strongest in Ottawa amongst those 4 teams. Then you throw in the fact that they shouldn't have any trouble scoring when you have Tim Stützle, Brady Tkachuk, Claude Giroux, Josh Norris, Drake Batherson, Shane Pinto, like the list goes on here, David Perron. Like this should have a lot of guys scoring 20, 25, 30 goals. They're going to have a deep forward group with lots of offense. They have great goaltending. The D-core is probably still the weaker link of the team, but I do think it'll be improved from last year. I just don't know that it's going to be improved a lot. We're going to have to see how much of a step Tyler Kleven can take. Nick Jensen, how much he fits in, how much game does he have left. Kleven last night didn't look terrible. He got bailed out a lot by Linus Ullmark, though. His pair when he was on the ice, and maybe is it more Kleven because he was paired with Hamonic, that pair gave up a lot. A lot of the shots on goal from Florida was them getting hemmed in. You didn't see that as much with Chabot and Sanderson and those guys out there. So at the end of the day, I think the blue line is still a little bit of a work in progress, but they have the strongest goaltending of the 4 that bailed them out and one of the better offenses up front. I think they can get ahead of the at least Detroit, Buffalo, Montreal, and be in 5th place. In 4th place, we're going to go with Tampa. I think Tampa is still going to be a really good team. Obviously, parted ways with Steven Stamkos. Bring in Jake Gensel. Is what version of Vasilevsky are we getting this year? It's a big question. The Tampa blue line, to me, some people think it's going to be better. I have some concerns. I understand bringing in McDonough is going to kind of allow Hedman to maybe be more offensive. You move on from Sergachev. So obviously that blue line gets a little bit older. You get Eric Chernak there. You bring back Mosier. He can be mobile back there as well. Overall, I don't know. I don't know that the blue line is better, to be honest. I think it's going to be different for sure. And I have some concerns there, but at the end of the day, when you have a couple of anchors like Hedman and McDonough, that's still your top when it comes to defensive play. Should be better than a lot of what the teams I predicted to be below them. And then, of course, you have Vasilevsky. If he's, Stanley Cup winning playoff Vasilevsky that we've seen for a long time, then they could easily have, amongst these bottom 5 teams, the strongest in that regard. Their ability to score should still be pretty good up front, but I don't know that the depth is going to be as good as it's been in the past. So, your top guys are going to produce, Kucherov and Point. I'm sure Jake Ensel's going to fit well there and all that, but I'm not sure they can go higher than 4th in this division. Next up, you got the Boston Bruins. I have them in 3rd. Getting Jeremy Swayman signed was massive for them. Korpisalo had a really rough first game. Swayman, like Ullmark and Ottawa now, they both need to take their game to another level with how much they play, because they've been in a tandem the last number of years and they've complemented each other well, and they've both been some of the league's top goaltenders. But can they do it on a bigger workload? I think they can, but it's going to be proving it this year. The Boston blue line could be one of the best in the NHL. They're all monsters back there. You added Zadorov, who's a big boy. You've got, Charlie McAvoy, I think he's like 6'1", and he's the smallest defenseman. Mason Lohrey's like 6'4", 6'5". He's not a big physical guy. He's a little leaner, but still, he's got the size and the reach. You got Lindholm is a big guy. Zadorov's a big guy. Peak is a big guy. This team is going to be big, strong on the back end. Up front, they should be, if you look at how they were last year, again, my concern with the Bruins is depth scoring. They lost Jake DeBrusk, but they bring in Elias Lindholm. So from the forward group, they should probably get better defensive play. He's one of the better two-way forwards, two-way centers in the NHL. So I think they'll have a good complement that way. But I'm not sure in the bottom six that they're going to be able to get a lot of offense. So that secondary scoring could be a concern. I think Boston's going to have to win a lot of, smaller, lower scoring games. But I do think they can still hang around and be in the top three. Number 2, I've got the Toronto Maple Leafs. Again, we know the offensive firepower up front. Their top 3 lines. You've got Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares. Pacioretty joins their group. You got Nyes and McMahon and Robertson on the younger side, trying to elevate their games. Domi's been a good fit there. I really think Toronto, I know they got shut out on opening night against Montreal, but then they bounced back and beat the Devils. I don't think this team is going to have any trouble scoring. Again, the blue line is a new look for them. They've got Tanev and Oliver Ekman-Larsson in there. You still got Morgan Riley. Obviously, you've got McCabe. They're still playing with Benoit, Timmins. Liljegren appears to be on the way out. Goaltending, I'm not sure what to make of it. I mean, at the end of the day, they've got some capable guys there. It's just going to be who's going to take the ball and run with it, and is it going to be a case where injuries are a problem? Right now, Joseph Wall starting the year on IR, but you got a good game so far out of Stolars. You got a good game in his debut for Dennis Hildeby. Craig Berube's probably not too concerned about Wall at this point, thinking, well, I've got other guys that can play, and we're getting wins, and we're getting good performances, and that's all I care about. So we'll see. At the end of the day, they may not have a guy play a huge workload, which might benefit them come playoff time, and they may show here that they have strength in numbers. So I really think Toronto is going to be, challenging for top spot. I have them finishing second, but at the end of the day, they'll be right there. And, of course, number 1, your Stanley Cup defending champion, Florida Panthers. So far, 1-1 of the season. Of course, had a big win over Boston. It was a dominant win, even though the score didn't indicate that. Dropped 3-1 to Ottawa last night. They have a bit more games here on the road before they head back home. But ultimately, Florida is still a really good team. That core group is still very much there and very much hungry to win again. You've got Tkachuk and Bennett, which are great. Now, Barkov did get hurt last night at the end of the game. Him and Stützle went into the boards. Barkov's there on a 6-on-5. Barkov stick breaks. So Tkachuk gets the puck, flips it out. Barkov's going back with no stick, trying to defend the empty net against Tim Stützle. They're pretty much get tangled up, and Barkov decides to start a slide in order to take away the bottom of the net so Stützle can't score. It doesn't work. He gets it in, and worse than that, Barkov goes hard into the boards, feet first, needed help off the ice. Looked like at first I thought maybe it was a knee, but, the way going in feet first, it very well could be a high ankle sprain, or it could be worse than that, a broken ankle. I wouldn't think broken ankle the way he was going, but he wasn't putting any weight on it. I think high ankle sprain is probably a very good possibility, but it may be less serious than that, and maybe he doesn't miss a lot of time. But obviously, if he is seriously injured and misses an extended time, that could have a big impact on them. But at the end of the day, I think they're still, they're maybe not quite as deep as they were last year, but they still have their core pieces together. And at the end of the day, I think this team is still going to be the tops in the division. Now, switching over gears to the Metro. The Metro Division, we'll start at the bottom, work our way up. Unfortunately, I do have Columbus finishing last. This team has been hit with one thing after another. Obviously, losing Johnny Gaudreau in the summer with that obviously unfortunate accident. Tragic situation that the team is going to be grieving over all season. And then, of course, they traded Patrick Laine not long before that. And then Boo Jenner gets hurt in practice with a major shoulder injury. He's going to be out for most of the year. This team is just, one blow after another. At the end of the day, I think they're going to work hard and they're going to try their best to, to honor Johnny and to try to get through it. But I do think they're going to end up in last place. Number 7, I've got Washington. The Washington Capitals made a lot of changes in the offseason. Some people are higher on Washington than me. But I know on the blue line, they got Matt Roy and Jacob Chikrin. Their blue line's probably going to be a little bit more exciting, a little bit better defensively. They still got, obviously, Carlson, Fagerberg, You've got Sandin back there. So the blue line is definitely improved. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And they should be able to move the puck well and produce some offense. Goaltending should be interesting. They've obviously moved on from Kumper in the PLD trade, which is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But they've got Logan Thompson coming over from Vegas and another deal as well. Goaltending, I think they'll be okay. The blue line should be all right. I don't know that forward group, though. I don't think they're deep enough to really do a lot of damage. So Ovechkin's going to obviously be a player to watch this year as he's trying to go for Gretzky's record. I think he's going to be a little bit short and have to tackle it next year. But, all in all, Washington's going to be an interesting team. But when you have guys like PLD, Mangiapane coming over, there's potential. Maybe they'll surprise. But there's a reason why those players were made available and why those players needed a fresh start. And I just don't know that there's enough there in Washington to really go any higher. Number 6, I've got Pittsburgh. I don't think the Penguins are going to have a ton of success this year either. Definitely have concerns between the pipes. I know Tristan Jarry has been wildly inconsistent at times, and can he stay healthy? That's a big question. Is the blue line good enough? Is the depth scoring good enough? They got smoked on opening night to the New York Rangers and just looked like they really weren't better at all. So as much as they have some elite level talent with Crosby and Malkin, Letang, Erik Karlsson, I just don't know that the supporting cast is anywhere near good enough to go any higher. And number 5, I've got the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers, I think, are going to be mildly surprising this year. I think we're going to see, hopefully a better campaign because of health from guys like Sean Couturier. You've got Konechny coming off a big contract extension, so I think he's going to be playing hard. We get some young guys like Lushenko coming in to see what he can do. He'll add some speed to that lineup. Mitchkov, of course, is going to be exciting to watch. You get some interesting options between the pipes and on the blue line. Wouldn't be completely shocked if I'm wrong here and the Flyers are a little bit lower, and maybe the Pens and the Caps are both a bit higher. But at the end of the day, I think the hardworking Flyers with a new invigorated offensive machine like Mitchkov, I think they're going to win a few more games and finish just a little bit higher in the standings here. At number 4, I've got the New York Islanders. The Islanders are a team, obviously, well coached under Patrick Waugh, but they didn't have a ton of surgery done to this roster, so we could get much of the same last year. In all honesty, I see the Islanders as a team that's got good goaltending. Their defense hopefully will be better. I know Pellick and Pullock both interviewed in the offseason saying that they were hoping to get back to their old ways and kind of playing a little bit better. I do think the blue line has potential to be good. Up front, you've got Duclair coming in to add some speed. Siplikov comes over as a free agent from Russia. He looks like he should be okay as well. So they are trying to get a little bit younger. But I think we're going to see a lot of the same of last year, whereas this is going to be a mediocre team that's kind of a bubble team at best. There's definitely some good pieces there, but there's also a lot of still aging veterans, and they need some more turnover, in my opinion, before they can turn the corner. But we'll see. Number 3, we've got the Carolina Hurricanes. I don't think the Hurricanes are going to be quite as good as last year. I think they are weakened a bit. They definitely don't have quite the depth on the blue line as well as up front. They did a pretty good job of replacing the blue liners they lost, obviously, with Pesce and Shea both departing. They let D'Angelo go, bringing guys like Sean Walker and Shane Gostisbehere. So I think they're going to be in decent shape. I don't think the blue line is going to be weak by any means. I just don't know that. I think Walker and Gostisbehere maybe slightly weaker than Pesce and Shea. So I think it's going to be, slightly downgraded, but not drastic. Up front, obviously losing Jake Gensel hurt. Hopefully Marty Necas can take a step. And you want to see Jarvis take a big step after signing his big deal as well. Hopefully Svechnikov can stay healthy. But this team is going to be a really good team. They're well coached, work hard, come in waves, strong forecheck. But at the end of the day, I don't know that they're going to be better than the two teams I have in front of them. Number 2, we've got the much improved New Jersey Devils. They should have a way better goaltending with Markstrom and Allen. The blue line is going to be greatly improved. They're starting the year with some injuries, though. So clearly they've got Hamilton back, who missed a lot of last year, but they're starting the year without Luke Hughes. which obviously is not really what you want to see. They're also starting without Brett Pesce, who comes over from Carolina as a free agent. So far, they're getting guys like Kovacevic and Casey are getting more minutes. So we'll see how that works out. At the end of the day, I think the Devils are a pretty deep team. They've got a new coach, great depth on the blue line and the forward group, new goaltending tandem, and I think they'll be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. And number 1, I've got the New York Rangers, who thumped the Penguins in their first game of the year, 6-0. This team is on the backbone of Igor Shesterkin. He's looking for a mammoth contract extension, somewhere in that $12 million range. And if you want to get the big money, you got to play big. So I expect a Vezina caliber season out of Igor. The blue line and the forward group knows that it's probably like a last dance type of scenario where there's definitely going to be, a handful of these guys not return because of cap implications. And this is a team that's going to want to win together. So I suspect that they're going to be pushing hard and will have a really good regular season and finish in first place. So I have the Atlantic sending 5 teams to the playoffs: Florida, Toronto, Boston, Tampa, Ottawa, and then 3 from the Metro: the Rangers, the Devils, and the Hurricanes. Now in the Western Conference, let's go through the Central Division. I have in 8th place the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks are definitely going to be better. They added some much-needed veteran help for Connor Bedard and company, but at the end of the day, I don't think they're going to be improved that much to get out of the basement, and will once again get another high pick. Number 7, I've got the Minnesota Wild. I don't know that Minnesota is going to be, really all that great this year. They do have some up-and-coming talent that's going to get more opportunities. We'll see what happens with Marco Rossi this year. I know he was mentioned in the rumor mill for possible trade in the offseason. Same with Gustafsson. A lot of uncertainty around the future of Kirill Kaprizov as well. So they have a lot to prove, and they certainly have lots to play for. But I don't know that Minnesota is deep enough to go beyond where I have them here. Number 6, I've got the St. Louis Blues. Doug Armstrong and company missed the playoffs last year and vowed that it was not acceptable, so they're trying to move ahead here. I do think they'll get decent goaltending out of Binnington and Hofer. They do have a decent blue line. Wouldn't be surprised to see them make a trade or two throughout the campaign to make this team even better. But the forward group and the blue line both had additions to it through the offseason. Of course, they had the offer sheet guys, Broberg and Holloway come over, the Joseph brothers come over. This team should be a little bit more talented offensively, should be lots of speed up front as well. And I think the Blues will, they may not make the playoffs, but they're going to be a surprise team here and give a lot of teams a lot of fits on a lot of nights. Number 5, I've got the Utah Hockey Club moving up here. Utah, to me, has looked really good so far. Dylan Gunter's been on a tear to start the season. Their blue line is much improved with Sergachev and Marino. Of course, they had Dursey there before. So lots to like about that. Decent goaltending tandem. And the young guys up front are producing like crazy. So I think Utah is going to be a real fun team to watch and get themselves at least up into 5th place, if not more. Number 4, we've got the Winnipeg Jets. I think the Jets will take a bit of a step back this year, but still be a fun, interesting team to watch. Good goaltending with Hellebuck. Decent blue line, but not as good as the past. And up front, they should be able to still score a lot, but I do have concerns over their secondary scoring now. I don't think they're quite as deep a team as they were before, and because of that, I can see them coming down the standings a little bit here, dropping to 4th place. Number 3, we've got Colorado. I'd still love the Avalanche, but they certainly have some concerns, especially with some big holes to fill early in the season. Goaltending is, at times shaky. The blue line has got lots of mobility, lots of speed, lots of offense, some ability to shut down as well. And up front, they've got some great players. But the problem here with the Avalanche right now is especially the depth in the forward group. Because of guys like Landeskog and Nichushkin not being there and all that money being tied up, they just don't have as deep of a forward group as you would think. And I think there's going to be a few teams here get ahead of them this year. Number 2, I've got the Nashville Predators, who are one of the top busiest teams in the offseason, bringing in Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault and Brady Shea, inking UC Saros to an 8-year deal. Of course, Captain Roman Josi still very much one of the top players in the NHL. This is going to be a very fun team to watch. They're certainly greatly improved with their scoring. They have great goaltending, good defense, and I think this Predators team can be a handful. And I honestly suspect that they're going to be right near the top of this division. But I do have them in 2nd, and number 1 being the Dallas Stars. I still think the Stars are the deepest team in this division. Jake Ottinger, And Casey DeSmith will form a great tandem there in Dallas. And then on the blue line, you've got one of the better blue lines in the NHL. And you've got a pretty deep forward group as well that's been infused with some excellent youth here recently, with Wyatt Johnson taking a bigger role. And then, of course, Stan Coven's expected to take a big step this year as well. So, in all honesty, they don't have Joe Pavelski anymore, but there's still lots of talent on the Dallas team. And I do think that the Stars up front are one of the deeper teams in the league and will win a lot of games between that, their blue line, and the goaltending. I think they've got it all and will be the best team to beat in the Central. Lastly, in the Pacific, starting in 8th place, we're going to go with the San Jose Sharks. The Sharks are going to be a lot more fun to watch. Macklin Celebrity put on a show in his first game. I think there's going to be lots of fun highlight reels, lots of good things, but ultimately I don't know that they can get out of the basement just yet. This team has got a ways to go, but there's lots of talent, lots of optimism for the future, just not quite yet to take that big step. Calgary I have in 7th. The Flames are still in a downward trajectory here. They have not fully bottomed out. I can see a few more veterans being moved this season, and this is a team that, at the end of the day, could really benefit from a really high pick. So if I'm Craig Conroy, I'm not too worried about wins and losses. I'm worried about development and trying to get a good position here in the draft. Number 6, you got the Anaheim Ducks. I think the Ducks are ready to take a step forward. They're not going to go too far, but I can see them getting ahead of teams like Calgary and San Jose. They have lots of talent there. Cutter Gauthier joining the mix this year. You already get McTavish, Zegras, Leo Carlson, Troy Terry. Lots of great young defensemen, great goaltending on the backside. I think this team is going to be fun to watch and definitely surprise a bit this year. The Ducks are ready to start taking a step forward, although it's not going to be a big leap just yet. I can have them going up to 6th place. In 5th place, we've got the Seattle Kraken. I don't think the Kraken are going to go too high in the standings this year. Though they brought in some veteran players like a Stevenson and a Brandon Montour to kind of take the pressure off guys like Shane Wright and Matty Beniers. And that should allow them a good opportunity to develop and really take a step in their own individual game this year. But in all honesty, I think this team has flaws between the pipes. I think that has flaws on the blue line and in the forward group, and I don't know that they can go any higher than 5th place. Number 4, get the LA Kings. The Kings, to me, might even dip lower than this. Obviously, without Drew Doughty for the first 3 months, it's going to be a big blow. This team has got some question marks between the pipes. They've got, obviously, Darcy Kemper. Can he bounce back? They moved PLD. They're banking on Byfield having a big step forward again this year, and I think he can do that. But you need lots of other things to go right. And as much as this team has decent depth, I don't know. I mean, they're trying to change their style and systems here so that they're not so defensive minded. And then you take away, your top defenseman, and maybe your goaltending is not, super solid. I don't know. I'm really not sure this LA team is really going to be more than a mediocre club. So I have them going in 4th. Number 3, I've got the Vegas Golden Knights. The Golden Knights are still going to be a fun team to watch. I'd be curious to see how they handle their injuries this year. And is it going to be the 3rd year in a row for Mark Stone going to IR in February? That's certainly going to be something to watch. But this team certainly has good goaltending with Aiden Hill. They've got a deep, big blue line, lots of firepower up front, but not quite as deep as before. So in all honesty, I think they're still going to be a really good team, just lacking a little bit of that secondary scoring, which is why I got them in 3rd place. Number 2, I've got the Vancouver Canucks. I think the Canucks are going to be a fun team to watch. It's going to be interesting to see how goaltending goes while Demko was out. We don't have a timeline on his return. I think they're going to be very careful with that injury. That could play a big factor here in how the season goes. But ultimately, you've got a pretty good blue line led by Quinn Hughes. You've got a good forward group. Ken Elias Pettersson get back to being like a 100-point producer. I know there's a lot of fans that had concerns over how he looked. So that's going to be a big factor. You got Miller, you got Besser. Besser's playing for a new contract now. So at the end of the day, I think this Canucks team is still pretty deep. There's still lots to like, and very much can pick off where they left off last year and will be one of the top 2 spots in the division. And then number 1, 1st place, I've got the Edmonton Oilers. I know they got beat down by the Jets in the first game of the season. They started last year rough as well and finished really strong, coming just shy of one win from winning the Stanley Cup. So I think McDavid, Draisaitl and company are going to get there again. I think this team could benefit from a trade to work on the blue line. That's definitely their Achilles heel here. But some of the forwards they brought in, I thought like Jeff Skinner needs to pick up his level of compete and intensity a little bit to be more productive. So we'll see. At the end of the day, I think they're deeper than ever, though. I want to say they need one defenseman, and they need Skinner to play like he did in the playoffs last year. That first game was rough. So if they get everything out of everybody that they're capable of, this Oilers team should definitely be a first-place club. So that is my predictions for all 4 NHL standings for the Eastern and Western Conference. For the Western Conference, I'm going to predict there's 5 teams from the Central getting in the playoffs. So Dallas, Nashville, Colorado, Winnipeg, and Utah in their first year, and then Edmonton, Vancouver, Vegas. So going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Let me know your predictions down below in the comments so we can talk about it further as a community. Of course, it'll be fun to look back on this just to see how right or wrong I was and how things worked out. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.